Board. If 325 through 327 Genesee could please approach.
Good evening. I'm Joe Camardo from 127 Genesee Street. I represent True Storage, 325 to 327 Genesee Street. I've been here a number of times. We've had some problems with some of our documentation. I think I've cleared all that up. We've also had some problems with getting the full board here, so hopefully tonight we're able to get a vote on this. But I'd just like to take a minute and just state where we've come from and where we are right now. Just going back in time, and I think it's an important point. I want to raise a couple of important points here. The ordinance 2019 was passed when Chris Colella purchased the premises, and that's where they changed the zoning on a group of buildings as a strip mall down there from highway commercial to general commercial. That was done in 2019. Before that was highway commercial, which allowed for storage facilities. Got changed over to GC, doesn't allow for storage facilities. Chris bought the property and ran into COVID problems, and then he sold the property contingent upon getting a variance at the time. Now, we came before the board a while back for the variance, the original variance, and we included in our packet a copy of our purchase offer. And in the purchase offer, it says very specifically that we're looking for a variance on the property, not just on the building. I think we were very clear about that. And I know that we went through the board hearing there, and there was a number of concerns at the time that True Storage really didn't have a definite plan in place. Chris Colella tried to answer the questions the best he could. But a variance was granted September 16, 2021, and it says, after consideration of proposal, the board voted to approve a use variance at the property to allow a self-service storage facility. So it was on the whole property. I know the board disagrees with that, but if you look at the case law, and I've given Nate a copy of a recent case, that everything has to be in that certificate. You can't have conditions floating around in a video or conditions floating around in the minutes of the meeting. I think the case law is very clear. The city has an obligation to clearly state any conditions imposed so that the petitioners, in this particular case, town officials, would be fully aware of the nature and extent of any conditions imposed without reference to the minutes of the proceeding leading up to the granting of the variance. Now, as a result of that certificate, we went ahead with a closing. The company dumped a ton of money into this. They purchased the building from Chris, and they've dumped probably $3.5 million into it. We went before the planning board at the time, which they really didn't have to do. They've been trying to work with the city as much as they can. Went before the planning board, and the planning board said, no, it's limited just to the building, and you're going to have to get another variance. So over objections, I wrote a letter to the board, made an application that we were objecting to that. I felt that as if we had a variance for the whole property, it wasn't just on the building, but to try to work with the board, we said, okay, we'll apply for the variance. And the board has asked for a number of documents. They wanted some revised plans. We come up with the revised plans. We showed a nice fencing and nice trees being put down and to make it look really nice. The board wanted the traffic study. We spent a couple $1,000s on a traffic study, even though it used to be a PNC store down there. There was all kinds of traffic, but we gave it the traffic study. Board wanted the hardship letter. We gave them the hardship letter. And the board also wanted some letters from the neighbors. The only neighbors that we have down there is a neighbor across the street, which I gave you a letter from. And the other neighbors, there are tenants in the strip mall. And I really can't approach those tenants as an attorney. Your corporation counsel will tell you that when they're represented by counsel. But I did reach out to the strip mall's counsel. They would not give me a letter of support. They said that if they had any problems or if they felt they had problems, they would reach out to the board directly. And I don't know if they've done that or not, but that's where we stand right now.
No, I do not believe we've received anything from them. If I could, my first question.
Mr. Chair, one point of clarification. I do have a letter from the owner of the neighboring real property.
Okay.
address to the board. I'll read that in at your direction.
Okay, perfect. If, Mr. Camardo, if you don't mind, could you please introduce to the board the gentleman on Zoom and his role as co-counsel, owner?
Emile Boussier is a member of the corporation. The purchase of property, he's also an attorney.
Okay.
He's both. And it's tough for me to be working for another attorney because it's a lot more heat on me, but anyways, he's a good attorney.
Okay, one of the things we sent in your shopping list was the financials, proof of hardship, occupancy rate. The first thing that sticks out to me is you, as of March 20th, let me stipulate, you had an occupancy rate of 11.82%. That sets off the first bell of why is this expansion even needed? Then looking at your financials and your spreadsheet that you submitted, the property is going to see an adequate rate of return as it is. Adding the new buildings outside in the fenced-in area, of course, is going to improve your rate of return on investment. But you're not even close to 50% rental or occupancy at this time. So I'm having difficulty getting over our hardship hurdle, which you know is a test for this, and that the hardship can't be self-created. And a lawyer of your magnitude, you also realize we are required to give you the least amount of variance necessary to help you achieve your end means. But as I look at the financials, I'm not seeing that there is actually, at this point, a need for the use variance. If you were around 80, 90% occupancy rate, I could understand it, and losing money or not getting a decent return on investment monthly, I could understand it then. But what's been submitted doesn't echo any of that to me at this time. I'm going to let any of the other members give their opinions, and then, of course, I'll let you answer any of those concerns, sir.
I'm looking at the spreadsheet. It says rental income at 90% occupancy. Okay, let's assume it's 90%. That'll come someday. Right now, you're saying it's like 10%?
Right.
11%?
Currently 11.82.
Okay, so, businesses go up, they go down. So if you look at 90%, I looked at the spreadsheet, they are losing money at 90%. Unless I read this wrong. The income after debt service is a negative $72, looks like. And the other one here, monthly with additional, 20,500 square feet, they're making a net of $10,000. So I saw this, I said, well, okay, that makes sense. It is a financial hardship based on my interpretation of this. Now, you may say that they're only at 10%, but, well, I don't know. I mean,
To me, that's a very mitigating factor, that there's an 11.82% occupancy rate. I don't see the need for the expansion when you can't fill what you have currently.
I understand that, yeah. But we don't, in the future, we can't, I don't know how we can predict how well their business is going to do.
There's an old saying, I'm going to just get corny for a minute.
Could you pull it a little closer, Dave?
I'm going to get corny for a minute. It says it's always better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it, okay? So if he gets a higher occupancy rate, and that could happen if people start moving back in the city, which would be a great thing. And the external stuff, a good facility, well, I won't get into that part of it, but I mean, you're going on this 10%.
Well,
In the future, it could grow. That's the risk they take. But
what we're talking right now is more discussion for when I close the public portion, because right now I want to entertain any questions you may have for Mr. Camardo and give him the ability to answer them. Are there any questions?
No, the only comment I have is this packet's very good. I mean, you finally put in the last puzzle piece, which is the financial hardship that we've been asking for quite a while. and that's good. Now, the fact that they're not making any money, their business sounds like it's failing, it's only 11% rate, I don't know if that's a mitigating factor or not, I don't know.
Well, as I say, some of these things are for us to discuss
Right.
amongst ourselves.
Yes.
Are there any questions for Mr. Camardo? Mr. Camardo, do you have any?
Well, yeah, I'm going to let Emil talk for a second, but don't forget, we just opened up this facility as a pro forma statement. So we're trying to project out into the future.
Right.
And as Mr. Tamburino had it, we are losing money at the 90%. When it gets to that 90% occupancy rate, we're losing money. Right now, we're losing a ton of money. When we get to the 90%, we'll be losing money, and it shows we'll be losing $72 on a monthly basis, because you've got your debt service to take into account. We spent $3.5 million down there, so you have to have the debt service in there. So I disagree with you, Mr. Chairman, that it's not showing any loss, because it shows a big loss, even when you get to the 90% factor. Right now, it's tremendous loss. We're hopefully going to recoup that up till we get to the full occupancy, but it's going to take time to reach that. You just don't open up a door and, you rent out your storage base just like that. It takes a little time, it takes advertising, it takes things of that nature. But when we get to that 90% level, which will be soon, okay, it's still going to show a loss. And that's why you need these additional units out there, okay, to keep this thing going. And it's a great thing for the city, okay? The assessment's already gone up on this thing. The mall itself is only assessed at $600,000 or $700,000. We're already assessed at $1.3 million, $1.4 million. So it's good. It's going to draw people into that area down there to buy more coffee at the coffee stand. They're going to go into the Chinese restaurant. So I don't see, seriously, any negative situation here. So we've given you, okay, our pro forma statement. It's a true pro forma statement. I can let Emil, he's an attorney here, he signed the letter, and it shows a loss when we get to the 90% rate.
I'd like to give you a chance to convince me, okay, on
I'm trying.
how, now, I've been in business my whole life, how one goes deeper in debt to get out of debt, and it's going to be a good thing. If you can give me a valid argument on that I'm not sure what your projected addition cost is, but adding that to your current debt, how that's going to help you get out of debt.
Because the storage containers are not as debt intensive as the building itself. The building itself had to be gutted. A new roof had to be put on. Just a new roof alone, I think, was $350,000. Right? These other bays that you're putting in there are not, okay, a huge expense.
How much is the whole front project going to expected to cost? What's the budget?
Emil, you can probably address that.
Yeah, thank you all. The total cost that we have into it right now is about $3.3 million. To build the additional units is another $400,000. So, the cost per unit is dramatically decreased when we put these outdoor storage units in. It's because the cost of the land and the cost of rehabbing the interior, climate controlled building was so high, but that already covered the land cost. So we only have to increase our debt by $400,000 to increase our square footage by over 50%. And that also has the effect of offering a different variety of units for people, because a lot of people do want to do the drive-up storage units. So it would, we'd be renting that out we expect a greater pace as well. With respect to our lease-out operations, when we open up a new facility, we always anticipate that it's going to take around 2 to 2.5 years to reach maximum occupancy of around 90%. So that's all part of the business plan, and I didn't think it was necessary to show you the losses that will incur over the first 2 or 2.5 years on account of the fact that that's just part of the business plan. We know we're not making money out of the gate until we lease up the property.
So is it fair to say that with your current model, that you didn't get the activity and rental rates you were hoping to get for climate control storage, and so therefore these units are going to help you out better with income because they're not going to be climate controlled? I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I'm asking if that's...
No, I think the rents are coming in generally where we thought they were, maybe a little bit lower. But the addition of the non-climate controlled units, it gives some diversity to what we're offering to the public. And the cost of putting those up is dramatically less than the cost that we incurred on a per square foot basis for the original, 30 some odd thousand feet of storage that's out there right now. I mean, we had to invest $3.3 million to get us to the point where we have 38,000 square feet. And it's another 400,000 or so to add in these additional drive-ups, which is another 22,000 square feet.
Okay, thank you
So, I
very
mean,
much.
not,
Anything else to add, Mr. Camardo?
I think Emil's hit the nail on the head. It's,
No.
Okay.
I appreciate your input, thank you. You may be seated, but I reserve the right to recall you.
Sure.
Is there anyone present wishing to speak for or against 325 through 327 Genesee Street? Is there anyone else present wishing to speak for or against 325 through 327 Genesee Street? Seeing none and hearing none, I shall close the public portion so we can discuss this amongst ourselves.
Mr. Chair, at this point, could I read in the letter?
Please.
This letter is dated April 21st of this year, addressed to the Zoning Board of Appeals from Clinton Hill, Auburn Town Square, Town Center Equities LLC, care of Time Equities Incorporated, 55 Fifth Avenue, 15th floor, New York, New York. Dear gentle persons, Clinton Hill Auburn Town Center Equities owns all of the buildings at the retail center tax map 115.81-1-4.311 that is located at 315 to 321 Genesee Street, Auburn, New York. With the exception of CubeSmart Self-Storage Center, CubeSmart, which is located in the same complex. It is our understanding that the owner of CubeSmart is seeking or intends to seek an additional variance from the ZBA in order to build out additional storage units to the exterior of their existing building. As the owner of the neighboring parcel, please consider this Time Equities formal opposition to the approval of the variance CubeSmart is seeking in order to expand their existing facilities to include additional storage units in the parking area. While we understand that CubeSmart holds a different position, it is our strong contention that an expansion of the existing storage facility to include additional storage units in the parking area will negatively impact our retail center. The proposed expansion as presented to us will objectively materially impair the sightlines of our retail center, and such reduced visibility will severely compromise the commercial tenants in place at our center that rely heavily on such visibility from the surrounding roadways. The proposed expansion as presented will also reduce available parking that our tenants rely on for their customers. Further, our center operates as a retail center which CubeSmart is not only aware of from its mere presence at the complex, but also in connection with their obligation to operate a portion of their facility as a retail center pursuant to that reciprocal easement and maintenance agreement recorded in the Kiwi County Clerk's Office on July 19th, 2019. Lastly, the proposed expansion to include additional storage units will undoubtedly detract from the retail nature of the center, which relies heavily on a robust environment versus the vacuous energy of an outdoor storage facility, which will appear still and industrial. It is never our desire to impede the goals of a neighboring property owner, but for the reasons outlined herein, we have no choice but to strongly oppose the requested variance. If I could be any further assistance, I may be reached at telephone number. Sincerely, Grant Scott.
Thank you, Counselor. Discussion, concerns?
I got a question. This facility that's sent this letter, now how are they that close associated? Are they located? Or is that one that's across the Ontario?
They own the property that attaches to this storage center and further east and stops at Pepper's Liquor Store property line.
Okay.
So they're immediately adjacent and affected neighbor.
So these storage units are one story?
Yes.
The one that they're building.
Yes.
So is that gonna, visibility, is that, what are they worried about?
I'm-
That they won't see
I-
their existing
I'm not
facility?
sure exactly. They were specific in a couple of things of what their concerns and worries were. But beyond that, I can't go to the letter writer's mindset.
I just wonder, are they competitors in this business?
No, not at all. They just have the other retail storage spaces there. Everything to the right. I'm sorry, Counselor, public portion's closed.
Okay. And you say the other, is that those empty buildings that are, that strip?
Well, they're not all empty, no.
No.
Okay.
I think there's one empty one there. Last time I drove down to check the property.
So I'm looking at the map of where the drive-up facilities will be, storage units.
Mm-hmm.
Who owns that parking lot?
They do,
They,
yes,
they do, or
yes.
CubeSmart does.
CubeSmart does?
CubeSmart.
Okay.
And if you had viewed the property, most of the parking lot has been repaved, except the one area designated for this development. And that's the only unpaved area. So it made it very easy to see where it was going to go and its footprint.
The people who own the rest of it kind of implied that it was all theirs. That's what I was hearing in the
Oh,
letter.
okay.
And that somehow this was encroaching on what they own there.
No.
I was just checking. Okay.
Other questions, thoughts, concerns?
I think
I mean,
the financial hardship.
concerns I had were any neighbors, neighborhood, or other tenants. Is it going to affect the character of the neighborhood? They've gone, changed the fence, changed the buffer, planning to try and address that. But to me, when you see these buildings jetting out now into the parking lot, is that itself going to change the character of the neighborhood? That's something we have to think about. We also have to wrestle with, is this hardship self-created? As you're well aware of, the hardship can't be self-created, but they are also entitled to economic recovery and use of their property. So we have to keep that in mind. The other is it going to change the flow of the plaza? Or isn't there really enough big business there anymore for it to change the flow of the traffic path in the plaza by putting the new buildings coming out in forward of the building? Now, we have other plazas in Auburn that have outbuildings, just none this size, and none that are going to be storage. So, yes, Dave?
But I just went by some storage units over in Elbridge today, and I just, because we're dealing with this, I looked at them. Neat, nice, well-kept. I mean, they're not an eyesore. And
No.
probably they're much more convenient. If you wanted to store something, you want to pull your car up, open up the overhead door, put the stuff in, and it's not gonna be a madhouse.
I get that too,
Yeah,
but
that's
you have
not-
to
that's not the
understand,
concern.
Elbridge zoning isn't the same as City of
No,
Auburn.
I-
And there was a reason why we spent a year going through every parcel, every district, and rezoning, because we want items to kind of fit and look like they belong there, not like they were spot zoned and just stuck there. Because spot zoning is one of the worst things we could ever do.
See, I have a couple of things. So in regards to the hardship, right? So whether it's a $5 hardship or it's $72, it's still a hardship, right? It falls under that category. It's a hardship because they're losing money, right? Period.
As long as it's not self-created.
Correct. So I mean, I get what you're saying, but if you just look at the hardship requirement, right, they're $72 in the hole, okay? But then you talk about the aesthetic appeal and the changing of the neighborhood. I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned also, which I was the one who asked for the information to come from the neighbors. Could you get people to say you're in support or not in support of the storage unit? Now hearing that letter, I mean, that owner owns all those properties in that entire strip, right? So I do now have concerns, like, you know, all those three topics that we just touched upon, you know, I have valid reasons for each one and support some but not all, if that makes sense, so.
See, I get that because I guess one letter that I'm glad we got was from the other property owner.
Right.
Because we hadn't heard from him. So being we hadn't heard from him, you know, was he fine with it or not? Now we know how he feels, so that kind of.
And he owns a significant amount of property.
Right, that takes some weight too.
Correct.
Is there more discussion needed, or can I move along?
Well, one comment on the financial hardship, it's a financial model, right? He has cash flow, that's not unusual. So the 90% occupancy, and I agree, it's very reasonable what he's talking about, saying, you know, that the occupancy, it takes 2.5 years to have full occupancy. So as far as I'm concerned, their financial hardship statement is good. I think it's solid. I am concerned about the neighbor's letter, though. That concerns me. I think it's a site. If you could, Mr. Garley, could you repeat some of those items for us again that we were concerned about?
Yes, Mr. Tamburino. I will attempt to sum up the concerns.
Parking is one of them, for sure.
That they're Clinton Hill Auburn Town Center Equities LLC as a retail center. The reduced visibility will severely compromise the commercial tenants that rely on visibility from the surrounding roadways. There's reference to a reciprocal easement and maintenance agreement that the writers of this letter indicate put a certain obligation on CubeSmart to operate a portion of their facility as a retail center. I have no knowledge of that. And that the additional storage will detract from the retail nature of the center, essentially from a visual aesthetic perspective.
So I'm hearing two things. Reduced visibility, that stuck out in my mind. If you drive by from coming in from the west, you won't be able to see the plaza. You'll see this other building sticking out. Then you get by, oh, there it is. But there are signs there too.
There's a large
Sign.
sign.
Yes.
And the only convenient way to get into the plaza is at the light, at the big sign.
Right by Simple Rose.
Right.
No, further down, not at Simple Roast. The
Oh,
sign
yeah,
is
yes,
further
yes,
down,
yes,
the
yes,
light, and then you would
yes.
turn in where there's the big
Yes.
sign there.
Yeah.
Now, as far as parking is concerned, I don't understand that because they own, CubeSmart owns that
Parking.
piece.
Yeah,
You can't, they can't consider it a parking area
Right,
because
it's not
they
their
own
property,
it.
right.
right.
It's not their property,
That's why I
so-
was asking about that. How
Yeah.
You can't say you can take away your own parking.
Yeah, so that doesn't hold very well.
Well, I don't know if he may not realize that they own that portion of the parking. Maybe that's why.
My thought with that was, with that building being there, the people that would normally park there for the storage would now have to park in the other spot. That's the way I saw it.
Oh, so they'll take a look. That's a good
Plus,
point.
there is
Yeah, they have to
an
do it.
entrance in the rear and parking in the rear for tenants who have the indoor storage.
But-
Because I went around back to check it out.
Yeah, yeah.
They do have parking out back, and they have a rear entrance for the long hallway.
But if you were
But
gonna
it is
go-
a storage area, right? It's a storage facility. It's not like a retail. You have 20, 30 people coming all at once, right?
Exactly.
Yes, you're gonna have like 1, 2,
You're gonna have a low
5.
volume.
Yeah, low volume,
But
so
if people
parking.
are going into the little garages.
Yes,
They go into the fenced-in area. They're not gonna park in front there.
right.
I think it's my opinion that the parking issue referenced in this letter may betray a lack of familiarity with the particular parcel.
And the idea that it's gonna change the neighborhood, when we've asked now for them to put a better-looking fence and a buffer zone of plantings, it's actually gonna make that look better than the rest of the plaza, which isn't a particularly lovely plaza,
Well,
frankly.
I get that, but it's still gonna be metal buildings,
Right.
metal top. And yes,
fence.
it's gonna be a black, nice fenced area protruding out from the other,
Yes.
from the other main part of the mall.
Yep.
I do, Susan, I agree with you, and I was gonna mention this earlier. The one thing is, we did ask, you know, aesthetically what it was gonna look
Yeah.
like on the outside of the building, and they have done a really nice job with that, with the shrubbery, the fence. And agreed, it definitely looks better than an empty building and what was there before.
Yeah.
100%.
Tom, did you have a comment?
Mr. Chairman, can you recall Mr. Camardo for me, please? I'd like to ask him a question.
Sure, would you please approach?
Mr. Camardo, obviously you want to get up, you want to have this approved and get these in. So my question is pretty simple, is do you have anything you could share with us for a marketing plan of how you're going to get those buildings full and up to speed to start generating your cash? Full occupancy.
I'd have to defer to my client, but if I could just ask one other question, just put yours on hold for a second. This is the first I've heard of this letter, and I'd like to get a chance, in all fairness, to respond to it, if that's at all possible.
Sure, I'll give you a rebuttal on the letter.
Okay.
3 minutes.
Why don't we just answer your question first, and then I'll, if you don't mind. Emil, can you?
So if I heard the question correctly, the question was how do we expect to be able to fill up the storage facilities?
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell, it's on track right now to be filled up in the 2.5 years that we would expect anyway. And the addition of the additional square footage, the different product as well, and we believe that that would follow the same pace. So we would be on track with our business plan. If we had those other storage units up, we believe we'd have relatively similar occupancy at the, well, it was 11% when I wrote that. It's up to over 16% as I checked it today.
All right, you good with that? Mr. Camardo, you may be seated. I'm going to move forward with the seeker review to give you time to get your thoughts together on rebuttal, and then I will recall you for your rebuttal.
Can I just make a comment on what Mr. Odessa said, the question, quick? So two things, I mean, we touched upon this earlier. I mean, there could be an uptick with Micron coming, right? So we have more people coming into our Hugh County area, hopefully. But then the other question would be is, I mean, we want them to be successful and fill those units. There's no guarantee, but what happens if they don't? Then what is going to happen? Are we going to have a vacant building that is just going to be sitting there as an eyesore?
Well,
correct?
that's it. We want them to be
Right.
successful.
Of course.
But we also have to remember our charge and our oath of office
Right, and that's
to
where-
protect the character and the communities of the city.
And that's what concerns me, then we have aesthetically
Mm-hmm.
this big space that is not gonna be attractive.
Okay.
But do you think a business like this would invest close to $4 million in something that they haven't done a little bit of legwork about?
I would hope, I would hope
I would
not.
hope so.
Yeah, I would hope, yeah, definitely.
All right, I'm going to ask Corporation Counsel if he could go through the seeker review with us.
Where's that in the packet?
Yeah, I didn't see it.
I didn't see that.
That's why I'm hoping he has it, because I didn't have one
Oh,
either.
yeah, we don't have
And
it
it's a
either.
use variance, so we have to have one.
I was 2 out, I didn't have an agenda or a secret review.
Yeah, but shouldn't there?
Yeah, but don't feel
be
bad, I didn't have a
something
seeker
for
review
Okay.
either.
Where is it? What number is it under? Or do you have the whole packet? from
Council's
before?
yes.
Okay.
Mario, I might have to borrow yours or ask you to do it.
I don't see it in the, I have the whole
Okay, this is a short form seeker review. It's been filled out by Mr. Camardo on behalf of his client. I'll leave out the pedigree material and just move on to the numbered boxes. Does the proposed action only involve the legislative adoption of a plan, local law, ordinance, administrative rule, or regulation? The applicant has checked no. And Mr. Chair, I'll just ask you to jump in if you have any comments on these.
I shall.
Hearing no comments, I will continue. Number 2, does the proposed action require a permit, approval, or funding from any other governmental agency? The applicant has checked no. Number 3, total acreage of the site of the proposed action, 4.83 acres. Total acreage to be physically disturbed, 0 acres. Total acreage owned or controlled by the applicant or project sponsor, 4.83 acres, so the total. Number 4, check all land uses that occur on, adjoining, and near the proposed action. Now, the options are urban, forest, rural, agriculture, aquatic, industrial, parkland, commercial, residential, and other. And the applicant has checked urban, industrial, and commercial. Any comment on that? Seems appropriate to me. Number 5, is the proposed action A permitted use under the zoning regulations? The applicant has checked no. B, consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan? The applicant has checked no there as well. Number 6, is the proposed action consistent with the predominant character of the existing built or natural landscape? The applicant has checked yes. Number 7, is the site of the proposed action located in, or does it adjoin, a state-listed critical environmental area? Applicant has checked no. Number 8, A, will the proposed action result in a substantial increase in traffic above the present levels? The applicant has checked no. 8B, are public transportation services available at or near the site of the proposed action? The applicant has checked yes. 8C, are any pedestrian accommodations or bicycle routes available on or near the site of the proposed action? The applicant has checked yes. Number 9, does the proposed action meet or exceed the state energy code requirements? If the proposed action will exceed the requirements, describe the design features and technologies. That is checked no. There is no further explanation. Frankly, if there's any questions on the energy code, Mr. Hicks can answer that. I believe Mr. Hicks is here, and he's our expert on the energy code. Number 10, will the proposed action connect to an existing public-private water supply? If no, describe the method for providing potable water. The applicant checked no, and noted that the property is already connected to the City of Auburn public water supply. 11, will the proposed action connect to existing wastewater utilities? The applicant checked no and indicated again that the property is already connected to the City of Auburn sewer. 12A, does the site contain a structure that is listed on the state or national register of historic places? The applicant has checked no. 12B, is the proposed action located in an archaeologically sensitive area? The applicant has checked no. 13A, does any portion of the site of the proposed action or lands adjoining the proposed action contain wetlands or other water bodies regulated by a federal, state, or local agency? The applicant has checked no. 13B, would the proposed action physically alter or encroach into any existing wetland or water body? The applicant has checked no. 14, identify the typical habitat types that occur on or are likely to be found on the project site. The choices that the form gives are shoreline, forest, agricultural / grasslands, early mid-successional, wetland, urban, and suburban. The applicant has only checked urban. 15, does the site of the proposed action contain any species of animal or associated habitats listed by the state or federal government as threatened or endangered? The applicant has checked no. 16, is the project site located in the 100-year floodplain? The applicant has checked no. 17, will the proposed action create stormwater discharge either from point or non-point sources? The applicant has checked no. And final page, 18, does the proposed action include construction or other activities that result in the impoundment of water or other liquids? The applicant has checked no. 19, has the site of the proposed action or an adjoining property been the location of an active or closed solid waste management facility? The applicant has checked no. 20, has the site of the proposed action or adjoining property been subject to remediation for hazardous waste? If yes, please describe. The applicant has checked yes, and by the way of description, notes the property was originally part of a location that was identified as a petroleum spill site and has undergone remediation, which has completed, and directs the reader to Exhibit F, a DEC letter dated January 21st, 2014. That is the entirety of the short form.
Thank you, Counselor. The only two concerns for no's that were on there that I have is, A, is it zoned for it, which obviously no, otherwise you wouldn't be here. And does it conform with the master plan? No. Obviously, otherwise you wouldn't be here. I'm not sure personally if those are mitigating factors enough for a positive declaration. That's for us to decide in a whole. Like I said, if they were yes, or if they were yeses, the applicant wouldn't need to be here for it. So I guess it's all part of the scope of what we're going to look at.
I'd like to make a motion that we grant a negative declaration.
I have a motion for a negative declaration for 325 to 320 Genesee Street. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Next, the chair will entertain a motion for the use variance for 325 through 327. Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry.
Let him read his
Mr. Camardo, if you would please reapproach
Sure, thank you.
for your rebuttal on the letter.
I'll make this quick here. I read over the letter.
Egg timer's running.
Okay, sorry. I'd just like to bring up this point that the mall bought this property in 2013, okay? At the time, it was Zone HC, which allowed for storage. So when we talked about changing the character of the neighborhood is already surrounded by HC. The only thing that really got changed was the strip mall parcel, but everything surrounding that and the neighboring is all highway commercial that allows for storage. As far as this reciprocal easement goes, okay, there is language in the reciprocal easement where they say we're violating it, we're not violating it. The reciprocal easement that I have here says very clearly at 5.2, I'll be happy to share a copy if anybody would like to see it. It says a portion of the property's parcel must operate and be used as a retail showroom. We do that, okay? I have a picture here that shows do you have a copy of that? It shows, if you want to pass that around, it shows that we are selling our goods and wares and boxes and tape, and we do have a retail showroom there. And as a matter of fact, when you get into the general commercial allows for retail, and we technically are part retail. So how you slice that up, I don't know, but we do have retail. So we are operating in compliance with our reciprocal easement agreement. The reciprocal easement agreement also talks about access throughout the portion of the parking lot that we're not going to be using, but it also applies down to that coffee kiosk too. So technically, we haven't brought this up with the mall people, probably won't, but they're in violation also of our reciprocal easement. They're supposed to be able to cross that area, and we're not allowed to do that. And when we talk about the building protruding outwards, okay, don't forget the coffee kiosk is protruding inwards, okay? And we are covering up an ugly parking lot that we own, that will just be sitting there, vacant. It looks ugly, okay? By bringing it out, making it look nice, putting off a fence area, it makes it attractive. So I really don't see the mall's objection here. Again, they're going against their own tenants. People going in there are going to be buying coffee. They're going to be going into the Chinese restaurant. They're going to be going to the dollar store. So I really don't understand why they'd be objecting. As a matter of fact, our property's assessed at a hell of a lot more than their property is right now. So it's just going to help them out tremendously. So I just don't see it. As far as the lost availability of parking spots, we own that area. As far as the sight line goes, I think you hit the nail on the head. The storage units are going to be a lot lower than the rest of the buildings. So even driving either way, I don't know what you're going to be blocking off. Easily seen. And it brings more traffic into the area, so.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Camardo. Again, the public portion is still closed. The chair will now entertain a motion for 325 through 327 Genesee Street.
I'd like to make a motion that we grant for Self-Storage LLC a use variance to erect a self-storage units at this property. The property course is 325 to 327 Genesee Street.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. As I call for roll, I please remind all members, when voting, to give an explanation with your vote clearly into the microphone so this becomes a matter of our record. Roll call, please.
Ms. Martini? Aye. They have now finally provided financial information that shows the need of having that additional area in the front of the building, and I vote yes.
Mr. Steigerwald?
I vote yes. It hasn't changed the character of that neighborhood. If anything, it's improved it.
Mr. Campanello?
I vote, excuse me, I agree with both. I think it improves it a little bit. And it won't have a negative impact.
Ms. DeVito?
Yes, and I have 3 reasons for voting yes. They have proven a financial hardship in my mind. Secondly, they put a tremendous amount of effort into improving the property, so aesthetically, it definitely looks a lot better than what it was. And thirdly, I do believe that it will generate more traffic in there that will also support the other businesses in the area as well. And if it supports other businesses, I'm all for that.
Mr. Tamburino?
Yes, I think it won't change the character of the neighborhood. I think actually with the trees and the fencing and covering up that ugly parking lot will be a good thing. I think that the reduced visibility, I don't think there is a reduced visibility, really. I think with the large sign they have and the, depending on which direction you come in, that's not an issue. And they provided, I think, a good, solid financial hardship statement.
Mr. Odessa?
Yes, I like Mr. Camardo's presentation. I think it'll be, have a positive impact on that end of the city.
Mr. Darrow?
Aye. Congratulations, Mr. Camardo. Your use variance has been approved. Please be sure to see code enforcement for any permits before any work begins. Thank you.